Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me again. And yeah, it's time for Status of the Nation. So like we normally do, we're going to be breaking down some of the biggest stories that have been happening in the past week, not only in our great republic, but across the world. So, as I'm sure you guys are aware, the ANC is having their elective conference later on this year. So the report that's come out is to say that they're changing their process of nominations moving forward. So the way the old process used to work was that at branch levels, people would nominate someone and then they'd pass it on to the regional offices, which would pass it on to the provincial offices. So this is when they were nominating people for leadership position. Mkhwebane said last week that they're going to change the process because he feels like it doesn't give branches the opportunity to be able to vote for someone. So the way the new process is going to work is that each branch is going to get a chance obviously to vote. So to nominate someone rather. So with the nominations, the way it's going to work is that the branch is going to nominate and those nominations are going to be taken straight to national. So I suppose they're going to do away with the middlemen, and I get it, it gives each branch an opportunity to nominate someone as opposed to it going through the region and then from the region to provincial. As it stands now, you guys know that the succession rate of the ANC is still wide open. In as much as they don't want to talk about it, the rest of us are going to be talking about it, and the names are growing almost every day. We know about Cyril Ramaphosa, we know about Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, we know about Baleka Mbete, and now I was reading that apparently Zweli Mkhize is like the silent person who's coming up the ranks, whose name is also being thrown around. At this rate, they might as well just throw in my name for good measure, It's not clear what's going to happen. There doesn't seem to be a front runner, as it is. So it's going to be interesting later on in the year with the elective conference to see how they're kind of going to go with this. But yeah, exciting times. Okay, so the second story, I'm sure you guys are aware, the past week, our new public protector, I should stop calling her new because she's not really new, but she is, but you know what I mean. Our new public protector, Busi Mkhwebane, had her press conference since taking 100 days in office. So a lot of interesting things came out of this press conference. Firstly, she talked about how she might be considering charges against the DA for calling her a spy, which bruh. I feel like at this point, the accusations of calling people spies, because I believe it was the EFF, if not the ANC Youth League, who did the same thing with Thuli Madonsela. I don't know. I just feel like we have to come up with something else. If that's going to be the jab, I feel like it needs to be a little bit more creative, but that's just me. The other interesting that happened is that she indicated that she would apply for a notice to appeal Pres Zuma's recommendations to review the state capture report. And a report that I just read is that apparently she's thinking of seeking out Adams and Adams to help her make up her final decision about what she's going to do. So that's going to be very interesting. The other thing that she mentioned in her presser was her relationship with Thuli Madonsela, our former PP. Now I'm sure you guys are aware, if you pay attention to the news, there seems to have been a bit of issue between the two of them. Busi basically said in her presser that there's no issue and that she believes that whatever tension or drama people assume that they have is something that's been created by the media. She assured people that, they've worked really well together and that they have no drama, which is fair and fine, but this is where things get interesting. We're going to talk about the BMW. So there's this BMW that Thuli got as a public protector by virtue of her job. A BMW that the state gave her to use as part of her job. Now, the report says that Thuli's son crashed and damaged the car, and apparently the damage is something like 450,000, which is almost like the write-off of the car. So, Thuli has confirmed that money has been docked from Thuli's gratuity to pay for the damages of this car. She's also confirmed that they're charging her an additional 37,000 for not returning the car when her tenure was done. So this is basically what Thuli says. Remember, we are dealing with taxpayers' money, so that amount needed to be paid. We're still engaging a state attorney to advise us as well until the matter is resolved. So when all of this was going on, it was understood that Thuli was obviously going to contest, I suppose, these payments, because I'm guessing that she's not in agreement. So this is where things also get a little interesting. Thuli had an interview with the Citizen, and she basically said that because of Busi's presser, she felt that, it was time for her to break her silence because of the false news, and the lies and the accusations, and she basically wanted to get some things off of her chest. One of the things that she mentioned was to say that she doesn't quite agree when Busi says that the two of them have been working well together. In fact, she says that their relationship was rather strenuous, talking about how when, she wanted to do the handover process with Busi wasn't very friendly with the response, and she talks about how the emails going back and forth, the tone and the attitude of them was not very friendly. So I almost feel like Thuli's interview after the press conference doesn't really do much to deal with, these issues, or deal with the talks that people are having that, the two of them don't really get along. So another thing about Busi is that one of the key investigators of the state of capture report has resigned, and she joins, a list of people who have left ever since Busi has taken over. So I don't know, I almost feel like, Busi, she's had a hard time, ever since, from day one, being the public protector. And I mean, I suppose it's not easy when you've got all the political parties and the things that they have to say about you, and you're trying to do your job, and there's this beef that seems to exist between you and the former public protector. I can't imagine that it's easy, and I mean, she has a lot on her plate. If it's not the state capture report, it's the APSA report and whatever else she's got going on. So it's going to be interesting. Her first 100 days have been tough. But only time will tell what the next 100 days and so on are going to look like. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but this weekend makes it a year since the 3 miners have been trapped in Lily Mine. And the story, like, everything about the story just breaks my heart. I mean, the fact that it's been a whole entire year, and these families, still don't have the bodies, they still don't have closure, they haven't laid their family members to rest, and it's incredibly sad. And I was reading a report that they were saying that the mine is saying that they need something like 130 million rands to be able to reopen the mine and start with recovery operations again. So this entire story is incredibly sad, and I, for one, and I'm sure like all of you, feel for the family members, because they're the ones, again, who are left with what's happened, and they don't have any form of closure. So if you guys are unaware, the 9th of February is going to be the State of Nation address, not status, State of Nation address. And Julius Malema has basically come out to say that, that's when he's ready to see Pres Zuma. He basically said that he's waiting for him, and I don't even know what that means, but he's like, yeah, he's gonna see him at Sona. So I don't know if that means that we need to prepare ourselves for another eventful day in Parliament. Only time will tell. Julius is also of the opinion that Jacob Zuma doesn't really want a woman president. He doesn't seem to think that that's really the case. This is what Julius Malema basically says about President Zuma not wanting a woman. He doesn't want any woman president. If there was a possibility of him changing overnight to become a woman so that he could secure a third term, he would have done that. And the reason why Julius says that is because he believes, he's of the opinion that the reason why Pres Zuma would want a third term is to avoid a court date. I don't think that that's the case. Our constitution doesn't allow. As far as the constitution of the ANC, from my understanding, the ANC has always been a one center of power type of party. So it means that if you're the president of the party, you're going to be the presidential candidate and ultimately, be the president. So it makes no sense to me to say that he wants a third term, because the constitution of the republic wouldn't allow. Maybe that of the ANC would allow for him to be president of the party again, but not necessarily their presidential nomination. So I don't know what Julius is on about, but I mean, from what we know about Julius, he never fails to deliver the spice. That's one thing for sure. So let's talk about what's happening in Zimbabwe. If you guys are unaware, Pastor Evans has been arrested. Now, Pastor Evans is the leader, and I think it's safe to say the founder of the #ThisFlag movement. Now, if you guys don't know what the movement is all about, it literally was just Pastor Evans just, speaking about the frustrations that he was feeling about the Zimbabwean government. And the way it literally started was that he got a camera, put it on his desk, took the Zimbabwean flag, had it around his neck, and just, spoke from his heart. He spoke about his frustrations and the things that he wasn't happy about. The movement quickly grew, not only in Zimbabwe, but across the world, with people, standing in solidarity with what was happening in Zim. And I think what was very telling about that is that, people always like to say that people in Zim aren't necessarily unhappy about the state of things, because if they were, they would have done something about it. And I'm like, I feel like people who say that don't have complete understanding of how things work in Zim. And I think, if anything, that this flag movement has shown that, a lot of people in Zim are not happy. And I think that's why the movement grew the way that it did. So last year around June, I want to say, Pastor Evans and his family left Zim. And, I'm thinking it was for safety reasons. And I completely understand that, And when he left, a lot of people who were part of the movement felt like, he let them down. They felt like him leaving, slowed down the movement. And this has always been my thing about, movements. I always feel that a movement needs to be bigger than the individual. A movement needs to be able to sustain itself beyond the individual. If the cause and the goal and the motive for why the movement is there is clear enough, in my opinion, it should be able to outlive its founders or the people who started. And, I think it's a great weight for Pastor Evans, or for anyone who's seen as a leader of a movement, or who's seen as someone who starts a movement. I think it's a great weight, because people now look to you, as opposed to looking within themselves and looking to each other as a community to say, these are the things that we're not happy about, and this is how we're going to move it forward. But anyway, so since coming back to Zim, he's been arrested, and the Secretary General of the MDC basically said that it was backward and disgusting of the Zimbabwean government to have him arrested. And he also tweeted that he doesn't understand what it is that the government wants to achieve by having Pastor Evans locked up. So in terms of the charges, his lawyer, Fadzai Mahare, and I hope that I'm saying that correctly, he basically said that the charges are for attempting to overthrow the Zimbabwean government. He's being charged for anti-Mugabe protest that happened in New York, and he's also being charged for protest that happened in Zim. But that last one is a little funny to me, because he's been charged for those protests, but he wasn't even in the country. Those protests happened after he left in July. I saw that he released a statement after he got arrested to say that, he's fine. And, and I suppose what it basically means now is that, the movement continues. The things that were the issues last year didn't suddenly change. I think the movement continues. Then there's a story of this. This entire situation makes no sense to me. Every single person, and in my opinion, every single person who is involved needs to be charged, because it's not enough that people want to resign, or that people may have moved in and out. It's not enough. People need to be held liable. There need to be consequences, because this makes no sense. I know they're going to want to have inquiries, they're going to want to have investigations and all of the things. All I'm saying is that justice needs to be served. And again, I feel like it speaks to how the mentally ill are treated in this country. I suppose it speaks to how people with mental health issues are treated in this country. And my thing is that there needs to be consequences for this. There needs to be proper consequences. A resignation is not enough, in my opinion. So the last thing we're going to talk about is Donald Trump. And he is out here tweeting. It boggles my mind that this man is actually the president of the United States. And this is just his behavior. This is the way he's choosing to communicate or even present himself to the world. It just, wow. It hasn't even been the 400 days, let alone a month, and he's already done so much. Anyway, so his administration is still out here, with their alternative facts. In fact, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer basically used the shooting of 14 people in San Bernardino, California, as a reason why President Trump had to rush so much with the executive order. So I'm going to need you guys to do your Googles, and you'll see what that tragedy was all about. But here's the problem with what Sean says and why it doesn't really make much sense to me. You see, the attackers in San Bernardino, none of them were from the country that are listed on the executive order. In fact, both of the attackers have Pakistani roots. The husband is a Illinois US born citizen with Pakistani roots. The wife was a Pakistani immigrant who had spent time in Saudi Arabia. Now, none of these countries are listed on the executive order. In fact, if you look at the countries that aren't listed on the executive order and you look at the countries that do business with Donald Trump, interesting, isn't it? But I mean, this is what this administration has been about thus far. They've been about alternative facts, they've been about spinning stories, they've been about trying to explain things because they don't seem to think that we understand. So I just thought once again it would be fitting for us to provide them with what the real facts and what the real numbers actually are. But hey, who needs truth and the facts when hate is a motivator, right? But anyway, that is it for Status of the Nation. Please make sure you thumbs up this video, please comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.